as a listing agent, or if you're a buyer's agent representing somebody buying somebody else's listing. We've always heard that cash is king, and I still see it like, I've got cash, I'm going to make an offer, and I'm going to make an offer 20% less because it's cash. And from what I can tell, that doesn't work anymore, it shouldn't work anymore.
Right. It really depends on the advice that you're getting. So I think that shows why it's so important to work with a professional that knows what they're doing. And when I'm a listing agent and I've got, again, 3 to 6 offers on the property, we're going to look at the whole package. It's my job to not make that decision for a seller, but to lay all of that out and show them what we've got, what those offers are, and what they can mean. Because ultimately what we're looking at as a listing agent, we want to know which one is going to close, right? So a lot of times people think cash is king because it's maybe the most likely to close, it doesn't have an appraisal, and doesn't have a financing contingency. But what I talk about with my seller is, what's that risk? What are you willing to risk and how much? And I'm seeing, I've had many cases this year where we had multiple offers and my seller had received a cash offer that was significantly, often 10 to 20%, like you said, less for cash. And they took that risk and closed and, ended up with much more money. Yeah. So that certainly is not the case in this market. Buyers are solid, and we again weigh the risk based on who is that lender. I know that you always make a point to really pre-approve somebody, look into their qualifications, and are willing to call the listing agent. So that's important to me as a buyer's agent, that I'm working with a lender that I know can back up that pre-approval letter.
I think, in addition to that, I think it's important to look at different scenarios to help a buyer be creative with financing offers, because you have all sorts of gimmicks right now, or different strategies when you're making an offer: appraisal, guarantees, escalation clauses, different things to try to make yourself more competitive. But what if you're working with a lender that creates opportunities? So whether it's a lesser down payment, we have options where you don't have to put 20% down in some cases to avoid private mortgage insurance or PMI. We have options where we can cover the closing costs for a borrower to where now they have that much more capital to use to put money down. So I think just being more creative and more strategic about that offer when you have financing, because you always hear cash is king, then conventional, then FHA and VA. And that stigma with FHA and VA is, and a lot of times, just unwarranted. It really depends on the buyer, it really depends on the property, but there are many, many times where an FHA offer is more solid than somebody that might be making a conventional offer. So understanding the lender, understanding your buyer, and really looking at, like you said, looking at the offer and taking on that, I don't even call it risk, I just think educating yourself about what's
information, being able to provide that information to a seller so they can look at that whole offer is a big deal. I mean, there's cases when very often you're talking about, again, 10%, 15, to $20,000 difference, and that a seller's afraid to take an FHA or VA offer. When, we've talked about it, and we had certain scenarios where you were able to explain to the listing agent that VA has basically a built-in appraisal guarantee, because our borrower's so strong and could put 20% down on VA, but he didn't even need an appraisal guarantee, because he could adjust that. And being able to work with somebody who can explain those things, I think is really important.
I think the key that you said is sellers are afraid of VA and FHA. I don't think that's the case. Because sellers, the average person doesn't understand all the nuances of the financing. It's the realtor that is, for whatever reason, conveying that message to the seller. And I think that's where that listing agent, whoever it may be, really needs to take a step back. Talk to the lender and see what the different circumstances are, because whatever experience they've had with those programs in the past does not mean it's going to happen this time. And the seller really should be accepting the offer, well-informed, and accepting the offer that's going to get them the most money. As a listing agent, that's your goal, is to get the seller the most money and make sure it closes. So all of those little stigmas about the different types of financing options.
I think it's misinformation.
It's misinformation, but I think that time has come and gone. These buyers that are qualified right now are scrutinized much more heavily than ever before because of COVID and the job loss, and maybe they'd had some time off. Credit standards are pretty high. Income verification is off the charts. It's a pain in the butt on my end. So you're not seeing some of those same things in the past that may been a reason why a client didn't end up closing. So you're right. Listing agent should talk to the lender every single time to figure out what information is important and how likely is the loan going to close.
Right. I think it's just not as simple as throwing out numbers. There's a lot that goes into an offer, and you have to look at the whole picture to know which one is best.